Good morning, everyone. No mai, haere mai. Welcome to the Regulatory Committee meeting, 25th of February 2026. First port of call will be to look at apologies. We currently have Councillor Pemberton away for 10 minutes, but we'll be back, and we have an apology for Chair McPhail. So is there anyone that could move that? Yeah. Thank you. So we don't need to vote in favour. That's just all in favour.
Aye.
Against? No. Declarations of interest. Any declarations of interest at all? No. Thank you. Public forums, petitions, and deputations. Anything there? Thank you. Now, minutes from the previous meeting, confirmation of the minutes. Having a read through, there was a couple of action points there that we'll be discussing. A few of the points within this meeting, which is good. Are there any discussion points that anyone wants to make?
I'll move that we approve, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so, yep, just making sure that the people that were at that regulatory committee last training are the ones moving and seconding. Thank you. That's great. Notification of extraordinary and urgent business. Any notification? No. Thank you. Any questions? No. So just Chairman's report and Councillor's report. So it's probably a good opportunity for me to thank everyone for being here, and also the staff for the assistance with me prior to this meeting. But I also want to go over with you all on who is actually on this committee, because last week we had an incident where there was a wee bit of misunderstanding. So currently we've got Chairman McPhail ex officio, myself, Councillor Ludlow, Councillor Pemberton, Councillor Young, Councillor Rodway, Councillor Gibson, Councillor Hodson, and that should be all. Is that right? Yep. Thank you. So we then have to move into the meeting. So 9.1 is appointment of deputy chairperson.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, just before we move on to the reports, just a couple of matters to highlight. For item 9.6, the biosecurity report, Catherine McLaughlin, the team leader, is joining remotely. And for the emerging issues report, Nicole White from the strategy and policy team is just going to do a brief presentation. So, sorry to interrupt.
No, thank you, Bruce. So back to 9.1, appointment of deputy chairperson. Are there any nominations currently for the position?
I'd like to nominate Councillor Gibson, Mr. Chairman.
Any seconders? Okay, thank you, Councillor Ludlow. That's great. So no other nominations? All right, congratulations, Councillor Gibson.
Thank you, sir.
You are duly appointed. Thank you very much. Now we're moving on to the terms of reference. Bruce and I and others have been working on it. There's been a couple of little alterations, and I'm sure you've all had a read over it. And are there any questions regarding it? And I might actually ask Bruce to go over some of these changes, if possible.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, just to explain the changes to the terms of reference, obviously this committee would recommend the changes to council in terms of its responsibilities. I did have, the chair and myself had a discussion on this pre-Christmas. Two key elements there identified on page 13 of your agenda. It's proposed to add an item around oversight of the Fast Track Approvals Act, which is gaining some rapid momentum. I'll talk about that later on in the agenda. And item 9 is proposed there is to also include some oversight around our contaminated land responsibilities. We have National Environmental Standard we have regulatory responsibility for. Doesn't get a lot of publicity. Leonie Grace, who does some awesome work in our team in that workspace, we just want to have some further visibility for this committee about the work we're doing in this space and making sure that we're fulfilling our regulatory responsibilities. Thanks, Mr Chairman.
Thanks, Chairman. I'm just wondering if we could look to articulating, particularly once we've worked it out, at which things will be fed back through to S&P,
Yes.
so that it's clear in the terms of reference and the map that we might have in our minds about those pathways. So maybe you and I and perhaps
Very good
chair of
suggestion.
ICM also, but particularly for me, just having it actually recorded in the terms of reference might help keep things a bit more clear.
Through you, Mr Chairman, it's something that sort of touched on the next report on 9.3 is the sort of efficiency of the committees and making sure that we're not duplicating the same information 3 or 4 times.
So yeah,
That's
although
something
I haven't got a
needs to
suggestion immediately, I think perhaps we could look at it and amend it.
And we've also looked at it as chairs
Yes,
as a group to look at more efficiencies within the committee structures.
so we probably need to sit down and nut that out.
Yes, we've started the process and we will continue it on. Thank you very much. So, yes. So just wait on Bruce. He's having a wee bit of a technical error.
Mr. Chairman,
Um,
Mr. Chairman,
yes,
can we comment on the other terms of reference there now, or can we do that?
you can.
Okay. The number 1 and number 3, I'm not sure whether we actually do this, or we might do it in a post-decision situation. I'm not aware that we approve non-notified resource consent applications. Do we do that?
Submit.
Through you, Mr Chairman, you do have oversight around the reporting back on that. Lacey presents a regular report, so
Yeah.
potentially we could reword that to say oversight of the approval of.
Yeah, we don't actually do the approval, do we?
No,
And similarly with number 3, it says the consideration and determination of notified consent applications that are unable to be dealt with by the existing delegation to staff. It sounds a bit more than what we actually do as well.
through you, Mr Chairman, that's probably fair comment, and again, the same writing or additional wording of oversight of would
Yeah.
probably be a better reflection on your role, if you're comfortable with that addition.
Thank you for that,
So is
Councillor
there a
Rollway.
formal process that we have to go through to have that changed?
Through you, Mr Chairman, I think if you're comfortable with adding oversight of in front of items 1 and 3,
Yeah.
we could also include that in the recommendations back to the changes in terms of reference to
9.3. Is there anyone that wants to move recommendation to receive the report? Councillor Gibson, moved. Councillor Hodgson, second. All in favour?
No.
Against? Thank you. Now we move to 9.4, Compliance Division Committee update. Very good report. Thank you, Bruce.
Yes, do you want to take no credit for that? Donna's
And-
prepared the report.
And Donna is here to read it. Thank you, Donna. Welcome.
You have to read it.
In full, Chair.
Presenter. Thank you. Thank you.
Through you, Chair, I'll take the report as read. I've just got one minor update before I take questions. On the first page of the report, I've talked around synthetic nitrogen reporting, and 3 properties were under investigation. That has now been reduced to 2. One has been able to supply their information. There has been a small glitch in the portal, this middleman for the data. So we're working with these people to get the information through before we take any enforcement action, which is why there's still 2 remaining. Open for questions.
Sorry, so those 2 are non-compliant, or are they?
Through you, Chair, yes, they are technically non-compliant for time frame for submission, but we want to wait and see whether or not it was put through on time at the other end before we take any action.
Councillor Gibson.
Through you, Chair. This may have been covered in 9.3, but we had last year a lot of things happen coming out of the winter grazing, and the actual finality of the whatever they did, right, wrong, or indifferent, was far too long. So can we sort of make sure that happens, I'm going to say within a week? Yeah, no, I agree. So is it sort of reasonable at the time between the incident that caused people to be out there and the result?
Through you, Chair, so technically there is a 12-month period depending on what enforcement action is to be taken for those files. So to say a investigation can be concluded within 1 week would not be achievable. Also, we have to wait for sample results to come in for some of those, and those can take 3 or 4 weeks. So we did last year actually bring a contractor in to help us with the winter grazing investigations. It's the first time we've done that to reduce the timeframes between incident and outcome. We did see an improvement from previous years, so we're looking at how we can maintain those or increase those timeframe improvements for this winter.
Yeah, I agree with you, and you got me within a week. What I mean is to get it so that it's, it happens, it's done within a month or so, because we were dealing with them through people coming back into us at a 3 or 4 month period.
So through you, Chair, so we stand down all other non-necessary investigation work during that period of time. The investigators and myself, that is our sole focus through winter grazing period, to make sure it is done as quickly as possible. With the resourcing we have, that was the most, and bringing in that contractor, that was the quickest we could get them done.
So your boss needs to give you more resources.
And therefore the councillors when they set the budget.
Thank you, Hamish.
Through you, Chair, if I may also supplement Donna's excellent answer. We are constantly looking at ways of being more efficient with respect to that, and I would definitely say that Donna and her team are one of the most onto it with regards to performance improvements. Additionally, we recognise that clear communications with our customers in this space is really critical, so people understand what's happening and when. So actually, following last winter, we implemented and enhanced our approach with respect to communications to our customers who may have matters that we're looking at with respect to not just intensive winter grazing, but other compliance and monitoring matters as well.
Thank you. Do you want a supplementary, or should we go to Councillor Ludlow next?
Could I have a supplementary there? Because, and what worries me a little bit, and you've said it at several meetings, that you're reducing your staff numbers down to about 40%. or somewhere thereabouts, I don't know the figure. But the thing is, over that period, we need more staff to get things done quickly.
Through you, Chair. That was a statement with respect to our consenting function and current vacancies that we have within the consents function, which the councillor is correct, is sitting at the moment at 40%, while we wait and see what the shape of the new system will be. Although we do have jobs open in case a wonderful consenting person walks in the door. As part of last year's organisational restructure, we looked at how we use the resource in our resource management group, and that did result in more targeted resource in the monitoring and in incident response, as well as gathering together more aligned functions within the resource management group to improve those efficiencies. We have also, through that organisational redesign, has been additional resource that has gone into the resource management group, and we're in the process of working through that at the moment. In fact, I emailed our people and capability team just this morning to indicate that this was a timely requirement.
Thank you very much for that, Hayley.
But we also should, say we're recognising against a broader cost reduction and rates capping conversation that's happening within our political context too. So fine balance, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Ludlow. We've got the CE with his hand up as well.
You can go.
I just wanted to add to what Ken's talked about. In situations where there's an investigation needed, it's got to be done comprehensively, and all the information collated, it takes time. So we don't rush that, but we need to have the right people and enough people in the place. So there's a bit of there's an opportunity. I think we'll talk about this a bit more when we get into the policy, the compliance policy space as well, just around how the teams look going about things, and a bit more detail about some of that. So if we rush an investigation, it's not good news.
Thank you, Rob. Councillor Ludlow.
Thank you. Different topic.
Sorry about the wait.
That's all right. I'm patient. The dairy top performers, interesting that notwithstanding the quality assurance measures, I'm interested in why you think perhaps the perception you've got of why some of them have withdrawn or chosen not to participate or whatever. Is there a trend there or anything?
Through you, Chair, it's quite interesting. It does vary. So a couple have been removed for the quality assurance thing. Some they've had personal circumstances which would mean that was not their priority to get that form in, which we completely understand. Others at the start of the season thought it was a great idea, but they then moved off farm managers have come in and they've thought, actually no, I still want those checks to happen. Some have just decided that actually it's just one more piece of paperwork they don't want to do. They would rather just have someone come. So there isn't a trend as such. It's just we do question when people aren't doing it. We phone them and ask, is there some feedback? Is there something we can do? No trends as such.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Young.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Look, just a query through you to the staff here. Am I correct in reading this? There's only 19 winter grazing consents throughout Southland. Am I reading it correctly? For the winter grazing inspections.
So through you, Chair, those are the ones that we inspected, not necessarily all that are held.
Right. They were inspected because of a complaint or something?
Through you, Chair. So we've over the last year we've moved to do more cumulative inspections. So if we were already going to be there, we've completed those. If we were called to an incident, then we would look at the consenting at the same time as part of that incident response. But the team are trying to trim their cloth as much as possible and only go up the driveway once where it's possible, and that's where those are being picked up in at the moment.
Right, but you do monitor winter grazing consents?
We do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Young. Councillor Hodson.
Thanks, Chair. That's in part answered mine, but I was interested to understand the sort of categorisation, I guess, of compliance here. Full compliance is really self-explanatory, but interested to understand the low risk, non-compliance, moderate, significant, and how that's determined. And then I guess also just wanted to note the very low number of certified farm plans. I guess we've been anticipated 3,500 odd. Yeah, but thank you.
So through you, Chair, one more minor update. We've now reached 10 farm plans that have come through to 18. So that number is growing slowly, but it is growing. In terms of the compliance grading, so full compliance is full compliance. And it depends on the type of inspection we're doing. So I'm happy to do a briefing or a workshop with councillors to understand that grading if that would help. But in general terms, a low risk non-compliance is what's usually called a technical non-compliance. So it may be no paperwork come through, or for a discharge permit, it might be a tiny spill of effluent on a laneway where it's not meant to be. Moderate is there's issues, but they aren't yet, travelling to waterways or any of those sorts of things, and they could be remedied quite quickly. And significant non-compliance is when we find over application of effluent that's making its way to water or those sorts of things.
Through you, Chair, if I may also supplement that, as our CE has shared, we are putting in place a briefing on our compliance and enforcement policies, and so we're happy to also include that kind of more information on that more granular decision making and the tools that we use in terms of things like the risk framework and the like. I think whilst that answer was excellent on the fly, but will allow us to share more information. So we'll make sure that that's included in the briefing. That briefing, of course, is ahead of then a council workshop with respect to our policies and what direction we would like us to go with respect to.
Thank you, Harry. Yeah, thank you, Donna, and keep us up to date with farm plan numbers increasing. Councillor Rodway.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, also about winter grazing. Now, I understand that this year, to undertake any winter grazing, which is grazing of any stock on a sweet crop or fodder crop, not feeding out on pasture, but it has to have a planted crop. People have to have either a completed farm plan or a resource consent, no matter how big an area. Is that correct?
Through you, Chair, yes. Rule 20A has within it a number of parameters that obviously, hectareage, setbacks, and there's obviously also the winter season itself. And Councillor is correct. In order to undertake intensive winter grazing during the winter period in Southland, you are required to have prepared and certified, submitted to Environment Southland, a farm environmental management plan. Otherwise, you are required to have a resource consent.
So, I follow up. Before it was an area of 50 hectares or 10% of the farm or something. So does that still apply? So it has to be more than that, or is it any size?
Through you, Chair, Rule 20A does have size requirements with regards, and there's a proportion in there as well, with regards to the amount of intensive winter grazing that a farm is able to undertake. So there's a series of permitted activity thresholds, and if you fit within those and you've prepared and certified your FEMP by 27th of May, as it's required, then you're able to undertake intensive winter grazing as a permitted activity. This is why we've been encouraging our farming community to prepare and have certified their farm plans. We have obviously a freshwater farm plan team who are available to support farmers, and there's also obviously a wide range of farm consultants out there who are actively doing the same. I should also note that the freshwater farm plan team now have well over 100 farmers that they're actively working with in order to support them on that journey.
So, Mr. Chairman, is there a risk that a large number of farmers will be non-compliant this winter? Or is that not a risk?
Well, I'm sure what you're alluding to is that if there's going to be an emerging issue this winter. So that's something that maybe Hayley can enlighten us with. Yeah. Is that where you're heading? An
Yeah,
emerging issue coming within winter?
Well, I'm
If
worried
the
that
numbers-
if there's a lot of people who will be non-compliant, that'll be a pretty serious issue.
Through you, Chair, yes, we are aware that this is an emerging issue and we've been working across the rural sector to identify how we can support farmers into compliance and what approach we will take when we're on farm with respect to the conversations we'll have right across the functions of Environment Southland. So not just in Donna's space, it starts with our land sustainability team as well to ensure that farmers are able to meet those requirements of Rule 20A if they wish to undertake intensive winter grazing as a permitted activity. So we've been quite active in this space in terms of reaching out to industry to see if there's solutions, understand what they're doing as well with their members to encourage them to move towards compliance with that aspect of rule, or to support them into preparing a resource consent if that's the approach that the farmer wishes to take.
Thank you, Hayley. It'll be very good, Donna and Hayley, to keep us up to date on that.
Through you, Chair, I'm very happy to.
And
Absolutely, it's a
I'm sure you
rapidly
will.
emerging space as well. In fact, we just met yesterday to ensure that we've got the right messages through the right channels to get out to farmers so they understand what to expect from Environment Southland, but also what they need to do to successfully winter this season.
Thank you for the reply. Councillor Gibson?
Just a small point, and Hayley's she's aware of this. The DNA test kit was shown by one of our ratepayers, $150 shot. In other words, he was getting the stuff coming in the top of his farm and going out. And he shot all the geese and it went from 22,000 to 150. But the thing is that you can identify, is it sheep, is it ducks, is it whatever? And at $150 a test, to me, it seemed quite logical to do more of them.
So, thank you, Councillor.
I'm just making a comment.
Yep, definitely. I actually shared that information with you, Hayley, and I'm sure you and the team are gathering more information on those test kits.
Through you, Chair, I have not yet had a chance to have a conversation with the team, but it's on my to-do.
I'm sure
So
Councillor
my
Gibson
apologies.
will.
But thank you for the
Appreciate it.
reminder, Councillor Gibson.
Thank you.
Through you, Chair, we do, when it's effluent, part of the sample suite that we request from our labs is the DNA testing to ensure that effluent is coming from where we believe it is coming from. So that it's part of the character testing.
Awesome.
Just a supplementary there, this thing seemed to be reasonably cheap and reasonably quick. But that's just me, mate.
Thank you. Councillor Matheson?
Yeah, so I think you've pretty much answered the question. Thank you, Hayley. In regards to comms, because obviously that's in making sure the industry are playing their part going forward as well.
Through you, Chair, if I may comment on that. I have to say I've been extremely impressed at how active, obviously, the industry has been in this space and how willing they are to work with us to ensure that farmers have the right approach and the right information ready for this wintering season. So it's been quite a good, positive, collaborative experience to date. So we have a winter advisory group, which is quite a broad section of interests and stakeholders in the intensive winter grazing space. And so we typically anyway share our communications with them, but we're really looking to enhance that this year and early. So expect something very soon.
And within the industry, we're finding that there is a lot of people coming up with a lot of ideas, and this is just one of them that that they share with us and we can learn from. So it's great.
Just one thing to add in the farm plan space. I would note that the farm plan team have quite a number of workshops / drop-in sessions that are planned right across Southland in, I think, starting quite soon, actually. And so we would very strongly encourage farmers to attend those if they've got questions or they need some assistance with respect to their freshwater farm plans and fence, I should say. And also they're available, just have to call Environment Southland, they'll come out and see you, they'll help you with whatever they've got. We've got exceptionally good guidance documents. I myself, as a townie, have gone through them, and I believe that whilst there are some technical bits I probably would need some help with, it is just a question of taking that time to step through. Farmers already know everything about their operation, their land and their water anyway, and it's about, this is their tool to gather this all together and to ensure they get environmental improvements over time.
Thank you for that. Is there any more questions? Can we have a mover to recommend to receive the report? Councillor Rodway, second. Councillor Young, thank you. All in favour?
Aye.
Just for clarification.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Hodson. Now we move on to 9.5 Consent Division Report, Quarter 1 and 2. Lacey is here to present. And I'm sure you've all read the report. Good morning, Lacey. Thank you. A very, very good report. Looks like there's some reform changes and some difficulties and some legislative changes, and you're doing extremely good work in difficult times, I would say. Thank you.
Morning, everyone. Lacey Greg. I will take the report as read. Probably just a couple of quick updates. On page 23, it talks about the next steps anticipated to be confirmed by the court in early 2026 with regard to the periodic opening of the Tuna Lagoon. Early this year, directions were issued by the court for parties to file a joint memorandum that outlined the issues at appeal and whether mediation would be an appropriate next step in the timing of such things. A memorandum was filed by the parties through to the court, outlining the issues and also requesting that timing be set down for the next steps following April, so from April onwards. So that's what we will be expecting to occur next. We haven't heard any official dates, so we'll be expecting that from April. And yes, with regard to the amendments to the RMA at the end from August last year, so this report does cover 2 periods. Work has been ongoing to implement those changes that were enacted in August, and some transitioned through only from October with regard to the consent process and the changes there. So I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you, Lacey. Any questions for Lacey on the report? Councillor Rodway.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Regarding Waituna Lagoon appeal, what is the process and what is the view of Environment Southland regarding the original decision? Are we supporting that or opposing that, or perhaps negotiating with some of the others to find a solution without having to go through the environmental process?
It's probably 3 for.
I can probably start with that, and maybe Hayley can add to it through you, Mr. Chairman. Environment Southland sort of wears 2 hats in this process. We were a co-applicant along with Aurora Runanga and Department of Conservation. We're also the regulatory authority for transparency. Lacey and Hayley in this instance represent the regulatory authority. I was on a working group, co-applicant working group for the consent applicant side. The co-applicants, normally for a mediation process, I've been involved in a few of them, the courts really push mediation as and this is a good thing in my view, trying to encourage resolution outside of a full noise environment court hearing, which can be a very lengthy and very costly process for all parties. The co-applicants have an opportunity to look at the decision and the issues raised by the appellants and form a view, which they then bring to the mediation. The regulatory authority obviously has a role in that, and obviously the appellant parties will have their view. If you get a skilled mediator, they will look to try and consolidate the points of agreement and then narrow in on the points of dispute and seek some sort of resolution around that. One of the presumptions for mediation is if you participate in a mediation process, the code of practice that the Environment Court runs for that is that you need to come to a mediation process prepared to reach an agreement. You can't just sit there and say, we're here under duress, but we're not going to participate and we're not going to agree to anything. It doesn't work like that. So the mediator has an important role in terms of corralling the parties in the room and seeking to drive towards a mediated outcome. Now, obviously, the co-applicants, there's three of us in this instance, will need to get our heads together about our position for that upcoming mediation. I'm not sure if Hayley or Lacey want to add to that.
Thank you, Hayley.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good answer, and I don't think there's anything to add. Obviously, this is a decision by Environment Southland as mediator, even though it is publicly notified and involved commissioner. So, and we're now in that court process as well. I do note that Lucy Hicks is the GM Integrated Catchment Management, who heads up the applicant side of Environment Southland, is online should we wish to ask any questions.
Would you like to make any comment, Lucy?
Kia ora tātou. I'd just jump in briefly and just add to Bruce's answer there, Chair, to say that work is advancing with the governance group to formalise our strategy for the mediation process moving forwards.
Thank you. And yes, it was a very good description of how the process works, Bruce, and I'm sure some of the committee members have done hearing training and understand that completely. So that's very good. So any other questions? Councillor Young?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, just for clarification, can we just get a little bit more background about the Waituna situation? Because I believe it's been appealed by one or two parties that are not comfortable with the outcome that the Environment Court said. So can you just run it past us for a moment or two, please?
I wonder, Chair, we're wearing two hats in this conversation, so I guess we've got a regulatory hat on here. I think there's probably good to have a discussion at maybe the ICM committee to talk about the broader, if you like, the applicant's view, and there's an opportunity to also discuss some of those views that are coming forward. This is a regulatory responsibilities here, so I think we just have to be a wee bit careful about roles and responsibilities.
Just to you, Mr. Chairman, probably further to that, totally understandable and valid question, but we also are in a process that's before the court now. So it's sort of sub judice, got to be a little bit careful, bearing in mind we're in a public live stream meeting at the moment.
Yeah, that's true.
Thank you, Councillor Young. Councillor Hodson, and then I've got Councillor Gibson, and then Ludlow.
Thanks, Chair. Two questions. One, as a follow-up from the previous conversation, just wondering if you're able to give us any insight as to how many of the recent applications have been for winter grazing activities. And then secondly, on page 27, there are two coastal activity applications described with the status as reported above. Just wondering if you could clarify what that refers to.
With regard to intensive winter grazing, and you say recent, I would have to give you 100% confirmed answer. I'd have to look at the depth of the detail. However, I outline that I have not considered any intensive winter grazing applications of late. Specifically intensive winter grazing. And through you, Chair, secondly, the above was referring to the outline in the background for the Waituna case, and it's a good question about the Fiordland case, which may have been omitted from above.
Sure, it's fine, and you can come back to us, Lacey,
I will
with the
come back to you, I
information
think that may be
regarding
in there
that.
by error.
Is that all right, councillor Hodgson?
Yeah, that's fine.
Councillor Gibson?
Through you, Chair, I noticed that applications awaiting written approval was 27. Is that sort of normal?
Through you, Chair, it's definitely not out of the ordinary. However, I do feel it's important to ensure that that data is available to everyone. I do have other reporting mechanisms that go further to outline which parties are holding written approval status, and that may be stakeholders, that may be neighbours, that may be, whoever that might be. So it could be across a varied list of persons, but with the amount of applications that we actually have active, that is not uncommon at all with regard to numbers.
Thank you.
You okay with that, councillor? Yep.
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Councillor Ludlow?
Thank you. Not a question, just wanted to say how pleased I am to note that the Matilda over allocation project seems to be timed up to everybody's satisfaction.
Councillor Robbo?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Van. Yes, two things. First of all, the question that Councillor Young asked about the Waituna consent, the full decision, which has got a summary of everybody's submissions and that is all available online. So that's a really good summary of the whole thing. It's a bit complicated, it's quite a big thing, but it's really worthwhile reading. The question I have, Mr. Chairman, is in relation to applications that exceeded the available processing timeframe. This is on page 25. The fourth bullet point says that exceedance related to loads due to high workloads and the complexity, etc. The last sentence is, in some instances, the applicant has withdrawn previous verbal agreement to additional processing days. So I assume that they changed their mind and initially said, oh, it's okay if it goes over, but now I don't want to go over it. Is that a major problem, or is that just something that occurs occasionally? Because it can reflect on our performance, which is really important because it's a statutory requirement for us to process them within a certain time. So is that a serious problem? If it is it something, can we do anything about that?
Through you, Chair, with regard to a serious problem, it is the odd occasion, and at this stage, ideally, as you say, we don't end up with in that position. So whilst speaking with people and verbally, perhaps on the phone or perhaps in passing, it is very important that we follow up in writing to secure and outline that discussion that has occurred. The team are conscious of having those discussions, and I'd just like to point out that whether additional processing days is not always at our request, or just because we need it, it is not always the case. So yes, not a serious problem, but the team are much more conscious of ensuring that they can put things in the system. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And if I
Hayley?
share through you, when this does occur, we obviously immediately look to reallocate work such that we are aiming to ensure that we don't then go over the statutory days. We're quite proud of our record here, and it's something that, as along with exceptional customer service, we it's one of our top KPIs in the consenting function to make sure we hit those statutory timeframes and are able to then report through into the National Monitoring Unit at MFE, well, if it still exists, that we, are delivering on that statutory requirement.
Okay,
Do
so
you have
further
anything
comments?
to say, Bruce?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, just probably in support of Lacey and the team, as she's highlighted in her report on page 25, there's a lot of change current and proposed in the consenting area. Generally speaking, a lot of that is about streamlining things like reducing the categories of activity and pushing things more to a permitted activity framework moving forward. So it is really challenging for Lacey and the team sometimes to provide the level of certainty that some of the customers are looking for in terms of what the future direction of travel is, because we don't exactly know. We're doing our best to stay abreast of that, but Lacey and the team doing a sterling job in some pretty challenging circumstances.
Yeah, Chair, if I can
Thank you,
just
Harry.
one last comment. We also, the recent amendment to roll over the consent expiries, that was not without consequence for our consenting team. It's not just a matter of changing a line in a database. We need to contact all of those customers. We're also using it as an opportunity to see if they're satisfied with their current suite of consent conditions and whether they want to have pre-application discussions about amending those to better suit their business, their activity, their development, their use is at. So it is a substantial piece of work going through both our computer systems and also our paper systems, as well as there are some pretty old consents out there that are still being operated.
Thank you, Harry. And looking to page 24 with the key challenges that you're dealing with, and the uncertainty of the legislation that's changing as well, staff and such like. I can only say that you're probably doing an extremely good job under difficult times. So thank you very much for that effort. Any more questions on the report?
Happy to move, Chair.
Happy to move. Councillor Ludlow. Councillor Hodgson. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Thank you. Now we move on to 9.6, and we've got Catherine online. Lovely background there, Catherine.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
Mr. Chairman, just before we move to 9.62, we also have Lyndon and Conrad from our Harbour Master Marine team at the back of the room if there's any queries related to that as well in relation to this report.
Thank you. Do you want Catherine to continue? Thank you, Catherine.
Morning, Tato. I'm not sure if Dave, Burgess and Jolie have managed to make it along, but I know Jolie was on a Landsar call out, so she has a very good reason not to be available today. I'm happy just to take the report as read. The majority of the detail in it this time is around the marine program, so we can just take questions if you like. There's no further updates, so I'll just open the floor to questions.
So any questions on the report from any councillors? Councillor Robbo?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just, one, Spartina, who has approval to hold Spartina? I see there are 3 there. I understand that some permit that they have to have it. I wouldn't have thought that would be very desirable to have Spartina.
Did you hear that question, Catherine?
Yeah, good. Unfortunately, that's a question for Jolie, so I can't give you a confident answer on that. If you're happy, we can round back to you on that one once I've had a chat to her.
Okay.
So yeah, Mr.
Councillor-
Chairman, happy to come back to the councillors on that question or just liaise with Jolie from our biosecurity team.
That would be great. Thank you, Bruce. Councillor Ludlow?
Yeah, just on that, somewhere way back in my head, there's something saying that they need some for training purposes, but that might be not all of the picture, so we'll hear from Joey.
Thank you.
Dog training, etc.
Yes. Very valid question, Councillor Robway. It'd be good to get an answer regarding that, Catherine. Any other questions on the report? Councillor Hodgson?
Yeah, on page 31, the last sentence, the second paragraph refers to targeting boat ramps across Fiordland and community events and in the context of the clean vessel passes. So great that we've got some dedicated resource. I'm just interested to know how much resource we're able to put towards boats that aren't trailered and using sort of, you know, that aren't drying, I guess, and that are higher risk.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure, Catherine may be able to respond. We also have Lyndon and Conrad here, if Lyndon wants to add to that response.
Yep, happy to go first if you like. So the Marine Ambassador Program is an exciting opportunity that is brand new this season. So we're partnering with Biosecurity New Zealand to deliver a national campaign called Protect Our Paradise, which is primarily targeted at recreational boaties, which many in Southland are the trailer boats, hence why that is a big part of that work in Southland. They're also one of the groups that we struggle to get our messaging in front of consistently, and they're often the highest group of non-compliers in terms of clean vessel pass. So although they are lower risk because, like you say, they are out of the water, it's important that they're still following the rules. In terms of targeting the vessels that are in water and that are the highest risk, that's where we use those joint agency patrols that we alluded to in the paper. So we partner with DOC Fisheries and Biosecurity New Zealand to deliver those at least 3 times a year. And we also have contractors working in Rakiura and Bluff to do monthly inspections of the high risk boats. So there's sort of 2 programs here that work alongside one another.
Thank you very much for that, Catherine. Anything to add to that, Lyndon?
Through you, Mr. Chair, good morning, everybody. And just in reply to Councillor Hodson's query that we're working closely with Catherine and Jolie, so with their own boat ramp, boating education work. We certainly advocate the clean vessel passes at a recreational boating level, but also at a commercial and larger super yacht level as well. Any vessels that are coming into Fiordland, for example, one of the checks that we do make is, along with their own navigation safety considerations, whether they have a clean vessel pass, and if not, we tag Catherine in, for example, on any sort of queries, or provide them with some direction around obtaining that.
Thank you for that. Any other questions on the report? Councillor Lumley?
Yes, thanks, Chairman. Catherine, just wondering what the feedback loop is for that that first off, it's not a trial, but it was a first. And what information will come to us from that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the contract for our ambassador extends out until June. So at the moment, we're doing monthly reporting up to Biosecurity New Zealand. We're collecting a whole heap of data that they have sort of come up with around personality types, engagement, and all sorts of really interesting things like that, as well as standard things like where they've come from, do they know about the pests in the area, do they know about CVPs. So the intention is that we'll collate the monthly data that goes to Biosecurity New Zealand into a final report at the end. So I'm happy to come back to you with like a slideshow at the end of the program if that is desirable, either to this committee or ICM. And we'll be doing the same in terms of presenting that info to a few of the Marine Guardians. So yeah, happy to do that in whatever format best works.
That'll be quite helpful for future planning to just have an idea of some of the demographics, or whether it's been useful and it needs to be repeated or whatever. So an executive summary would probably be sufficient for our purposes.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Councillor Robley.
Right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. He's referring to the table on page 32 about the inspections of vehicles in Fiordland. I noticed that there were a couple of charter vessels and 2 fishing vessels, and a few others that were non-compliant, that didn't have their clean vessel pass. So is this a concern? Are you seeing fewer or more vessels being compliant? What's your feeling about this, and whether or not it's the program is Is making sure that people do the right thing, or is there still a fair bit of work to do in that area?
Yeah, it's a challenging one and it is quite variable. They're not necessarily repeat offenders. And when it comes to clean vessel passes, sometimes it's just a matter of them forgetting or haven't received the reminder from us at ES about getting a renewed pass. So it may be that they're just a few weeks delayed getting their pass and they're usually really good. The good thing is that we're not seeing dirty hulls, which is the main concern. So often it's just a paperwork issue. When it comes to the larger boats and the commercial boats, we do cost recover for the inspections if they're found to have a clean hull but no clean vessel pass at the time of inspection. So it's sort of incentivized that way, but it is on my radar to do a little bit more in terms of analysing the trends over time to see if there's anything further we can do. We're hoping that the ambassador program will just reiterate some of those conversations and the importance of keeping CVPs up to date.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that, Catherine. And I can imagine the area we're talking is the amount of entry points is massive, and they're not directly coming from Bluff around to Fiordland. They're coming from all around to enter, so it'd be a very difficult job. But I've got a question from Councillor Young.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, could I ask here under these exemptions, there's one wallaby and one contorted, two species that we certainly don't want to see any of in Southland. So could someone just answer, particularly around that wallaby? What's the exemption for there? Mr. Chairman.
Cheers, probably Dave.
Dave's not here at the moment.
So we'll get that answer to you pretty quickly.
Along with Spartina, my apologies for that.
Have you got anything to say about Catherine at all? And Lucy's got her hand up as well. So maybe you first, Catherine.
Oh.
You go, Lucy.
Through you, Chair, just add that the wallaby exemption, I believe, relates to Queen's Park. And so I can double check that with Dave Burgess, but I'm pretty sure that's what that exemption relates to. And in terms of the contorta, I think that relates to the learning school that Councillor Ludlow mentioned before in terms of interventions for various different ways that we can kill the things. So I will double check that with Dave Burgess though, and with Jolie, and I can get back to you.
And thank you, Lucy. Would that relate to the Spartina that Councillor Rodway was talking about as well, similar sort of thing?
Yes, I think so. I think there's a number of places across the region where we've given exemptions to ensure that we've got research happening for the Southland context in terms of these species and how we would need to be intervening. And I think that's what these ones relate to. But I would like to double check just to make sure I'm giving you the correct information. We can come back with more detail.
Thank you, Lucy. Any more questions on the report? No? Is there anyone that would like to move that we accept and receive the report?
I'll second that.
You'll second that? Who's moving it? Councillor Gibson, thank you. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Lucy, for the answers. Catherine. Would have been good to see Dave here. I haven't seen him for a while. And we'll move on to 9.7 emerging regulatory issues. And I'll leave it with Bruce.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. This is a new report. We're just bringing this forward to a lot of our reporting tends to be somewhat retrospective to this committee, so trying to give a bit of a future focus. I'll just open this up and then I'll also refer shortly to Nicole and Shana from our policy team. We're just going to take you through some of the content that's in the report around national direction changes. Firstly, a key emerging trend I've noticed and it's worth being aware of is relating to fast track consenting. Lots of uptake of this at a national level now. I'm part of a national forum and it's becoming effectively a preferred pathway for major projects. And if you want to learn a little bit more about this, I am doing a muffin talk on this on the next Wednesday at 8:30. Hopefully you've got the invitation for that. you're welcome to join if you've got the time to do that and want to see my ugly face again. In terms of the current processes, we have two fast track applications that are now in the substantive process, so they're moving through, and they're moving through quite rapidly. I'll take the content of that as read, but it's certainly a new pressure point, I guess, we have in our process of these large scale projects moving through this fast track system, and they move really, really fast relative to a standard track consent. Nationally, fast track consents are taking in the order of 4 to 6 months to be consented, whereas previously through our standard track notified consent, that may be taking 2 to 2.5 years. Another really important element of fast track is if anyone wants to appeal the decision, they have to go to the High Court, and it's only on a point of law. So that makes a big dynamics difference as compared to a standard track process where there's a right of appeal to the Environment Court, which can take another year to get scheduled and then heard. And then there's again a right of appeal to the High Court after that. So the appeal rights has certainly changed the dynamics quite a bit. And as I'm sure you're aware, it's also interesting to see a really emerging trend nationally is renewable energy projects. We now have 5/6 wind energy projects that are live in Southland at the moment at various stages in the process. So that's been really interesting to see that growth over the last couple of years. And nationally, there's about 20 to 30 renewable energy projects, either wind or solar, and there's some variations on those that are in the national fast track process. So a lot of growth in that area, and there's some tensions with that, but it's worth being aware of generally. And that does raise some resourcing pressures for us. Fast track moves really fast, and we're getting sometimes 2 to 3 working days to do things that would normally take a month under a normal process. A good example is panel nominations. We have a very narrow window to organise those and get them organised. So that's just interesting to see. I possibly now will hand over to, we'll now hand over to Nicole and Shana to present the emerging regulatory issues, national direction stuff. There's about 6 slides here that Nicole's prepared and done a really good job on. We're conscious of, through this report in this committee, not repeating information that you've already had. So it's pretty short and sharp, but I'll hand over to Nicole.
Thank you, Nicole. Go ahead and we can wait until the end for questions. That would be great.
Thank you. Tēnā koutou. I'll run through a short update on the key emerging regulatory issues in the context of national reform. I'll keep it brief and just speak to the main themes we're seeing. The purpose of the Emerging Issues Report is to help the committee stay ahead of national reforms that may affect our regulatory functions. We're now operating in a more complex and fast-moving regulatory environment. There's a high volume of change across planning, environmental standards, emergency management, water services, and local government settings. And by bringing these issues together in one place, we can provide early visibility of upcoming impacts, support better governance oversight, and ensure our communities have clear and transparent information about what's coming. This slide shows the breadth of reform activity we've been involved in over the past 18 months. Across 2025, we prepared 12 submissions covering resource management, biodiversity and biosecurity, water services, and local government reforms. And already in 2026, we've continued that level of engagement, with a further 4 submissions made as the next phase of reforms progresses. We've also been active in oral submissions to select committees. Last year, we appeared on 5 major bills, and today we presented to Select Committee on the Emergency Management Bill. This level of activity is exactly why a forward-looking report is useful. It helps us understand not only the reforms that have already happened, but the direction of travel and what is likely to come next. This timeline sets out the key milestones in the transition from the current RMA system to the new system established by the Natural Environment Bill and the Planning Bill from 2026 to 2030. Listed below are additional legislative reforms. So in mid-2026, we expect the 2 RM reform bills to become law. We also expect the first tranche of national policy statements and environmental standards later this year, and the second tranche next year. Then towards the end of the year, the Emergency Management Bill will progress through the Parliament process, the enabling legislation for rates capping and simplifying local government proposals may be introduced, and implementation of the water services reforms will continue. Looking ahead, regional spatial plans are expected to be decided by mid-2028, the natural environment plans and land use plans by 2030, and the government has indicated the rates cap will be fully implemented by July 2029. The key themes and regulatory reforms reflect a wider shift in how environmental regulation is expected to be delivered, emphasising speed, national consistency, and enabling investment. Centralisation, so more decision-making being moved from councils to central government. Infrastructure and economic growth. Many reforms aim to speed up the delivery of large-scale projects such as energy, agriculture, mining, housing, and transport, which is why we're seeing tighter timeframes, simplified processes, and national tools designed to reduce delays. Reducing regulatory burden includes changes aimed at making processes faster and less complex for applicants. This includes simplified consent pathways, limits on who can submit or be considered as an affected party, and narrowing the types of environmental effects councils are required to assess, such as excluding the effects that are less than minor. Shifts in property rights refer to changes that influence how much activity landowners and developers can undertake, with more permissive settings in some areas, narrower consent considerations, and the possible use of regulatory relief. We're also seeing changes to how iwi and hapu participate in planning and consenting processes, depending on the specific legislation. And lastly, the move toward having one regional environmental plan is intended to simplify the system. So that's a quick run through of the main emerging issues. We're happy to take some questions.
Thank you very much, Nicole. Thank you very much. Anything that you want to add, Shana, or
Yeah, I'm mainly here to support and contribute as needed.
for any questions? Okay, any questions?
Chairman, just a couple of thoughts in support of the content that you've just had there. Probably a key element is an increasing push from central government for national standardisation of approaches. There's been a lot of variation between councils and regions and territorials around how they approach similar sorts of issues. So the government's seen that as a tension point or creating unnecessary delay and cost and variation across the country that maybe doesn't need to happen. So they're certainly pushing towards much more standardisation of approach. In the consenting area, as I mentioned earlier in Lacey's report, there's a very strong trend towards more permitted activities, narrowing of processes. So there's only going to be 3 categories of activity now, and also a very much higher test for notification. So that's probably relevant to yourselves in terms of a governance role, because if the direction of travel embeds itself and is legislated, as it looks like it will be, you could probably expect that things that people previously thought they would have an opportunity to have their say on, they won't, because the notification bar will become much higher. So things that would have previously been notified under the old RMA regime, where anybody can then submit, may well progress now without that opportunity for people. Now, there's pros and cons of that. It reduces the time frame, reduces the cost for an applicant, etc., but also can create some tensions around people's loss of democracy or ability to have their say. So it's worth probably being aware of some of those key potential emerging trends around national direction. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much for that, Bruce. It was very good insight. Councillor Ludlow.
Try not to be too depressed. Never mind where the environment sits in all those conversations, but my question actually is, we're about to head into an LTP cycle again, or an annual plan firstly, and then an LTP. So, and I'm having real difficulty working through the implications for the likes of us from those proposals. So I'm wondering if there's somehow if we can crystal ball gaze in light of the LTP conversations that we've got to have. How's that actually on the ground going to? What do we need to think about when we're making those long-term plan and the annual plan changes, so that we're properly equipped and properly resourced and properly integrated across all the things? So magic can answer up for that. So I know it's a big ask. I'm just really conscious that we have to be aware of this as we're taking some of those conversations through. And I don't understand the implications necessarily of all of it on teams. So
that is a very broad question on an unknown future, and I'm really waiting with anticipation, Hayley.
Through you, Chair. I believe that at start of training I talked about the need for an exceptionally good crystal ball on some of these matters. Rest assured, it's a core component of both work programs, the annual plan and the long-term plan. We continue to liaise with ministry officials, both on their expectations in terms of the tasks that sit with us, but also to advocate for sufficient funding to support the implementation of this wide suite of reforms. And of course, councillors will remember that is a core point that we have made in our multiple recent submissions from reform of the emergency management bill, as well as our submissions on both the natural environment bill and the planning bill. We're working constantly across the sector to understand what the cost of this is, and it is a enterprise-wide transformation, fundamental base state type endeavour, and so it's core consideration. We'll continue just to work through it and keep you informed as we understand more about what work we will need to do, how we will need to change our work programs, what it costs, where the funding is coming from for that, as we learn more and advocate for greater central government funding for the implementation of this reform across Southland.
Thank you, Haley.
I know it wasn't loaded kind of a question, Chairman, but
It was still a very good question.
I'm really conscious that there might be, half a dozen things that we need to keep revisiting as we go through, so that we don't forget.
Very good, very good. Councillor Pemberton.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I guess it's a side conversation to this, but I think it's still quite relevant considering we're talking about it. Standardisation of regulation across New Zealand, I think we maybe need to get real about where we see farm plans heading. And I guess at the back of that is I'm not too worried about spending a lot of time on how we deliver an LTP and such like. I'm more concerned around how do we circle and ring fence the tools we have around freshwater quality, Appendix C and such like that. So this type of stuff really worries me because I'm not too sure if we're going to be effective as a council around freshwater quality if standardisation happens and all the work that's gone into Southland's water and land plan and such like to enable this to happen. So to me, that's the big flashing red light that we need to focus on. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pemberton. In Nicole's timeline, somewhere there's a line where regional councillors maybe, and it wasn't in that because it's probably one of the most, difficult questions to answer.
Through you, Chair, if I may, we share the good councillors' concern at the highest possible kind of, level, and that's why that specific point was a core part of our submissions to the reform on the RMA. Southland needs Southland-specific solutions and tools to its own unique challenges, and that's something that we will continue to advocate very strongly for to central government and ministry officials.
Just supplementary. How can council support that? How can the government support staff in this? Because it kind of feels like we've got a hand tied behind our back here for Southland.
Yes.
Through you, Chair, that's a question we actually considered this week at Executive, and we are planning in the first instance most likely a workshop, but possibly a briefing, then a workshop that will actually look at the stakeholder relationship that councillors hold and how we utilise that in an appropriate way for the benefit of Southland as we move through all of these different types of reforms. And so we tasked Mr. Rossiter-Stead with shaping that up as a formalised plan, which we will come back to you on and workshop with you, what you're prepared to do and the like in that space, because we know that our councillors are very well connected and Southland benefits from that.
Yes, thank you very much, Haley.
Further to that, Mr. Chairman, I think what we can do, there's been a lot, as you're aware, and you've approved and endorsed. It's been a power of good quality work done by strategy team, Marcus and his team, about putting forward good quality submissions to the direction of travel. And, you know, the government's clearly got some strong intent in this area, but personally, I think it's been quite positive that we've sort of framed those submissions positively rather than shooting every idea down. And I think it's pretty clear that you know, something that was totally negative towards every change is probably not going to fly as well as something that's focusing on sort of taking the positives and then looking at how they can be massaged into an appropriate Southland context. And I think the team's done a good job of those submissions.
Councillor Robbo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Earlier, Bruce, you mentioned that there were 6 or 7 new wind farms proposed for Southland. I read about one of those in the paper going to be in the Taringatura Hills, sort of west of Tipton. And it said that it was going to be mainly on existing forested land and using existing tracks, as opposed to the one near Wyndham, which is really on a lot of it's on undeveloped land and dockland as well. So are the new wind farms being developed on existing developed land, or are they in areas where a lot of wetlands and native vegetation and stuff will have to be modified?
Mr. Chairman, good question. I'll sort of generalise the answer a little bit. It's because there are a number of projects and they involve some significant land area. Generally speaking, most of them are in land that has been previously developed, but for all of the larger ones, there are wetland complexes at a greater or lesser degree. And the applicants are aware of that. They're aware of the high statutory bar that sits around wetland modification, and they are, without exception, I think, seeking to minimise the potential adverse effects on wetland complexes. And that's certainly a key focus for us. Wetlands isn't the only focus, but when we're looking at how we might input into these, what are effectively national processes that we're often not the decision maker on, we're trying to hone in on some of these key concerns, such as effects on wetlands, biodiversity, that sort of thing. So, but I think quite positively, a lot of the applicants are aware of some of the key sensitivities and looking to do what they can to avoid some of those. There are some dynamics that work into wind farm design around interference effects from where you put the turbines. Obviously, the developers have some drivers around, you know, they need to put them where they're going to actually generate effectively. So there's some checks and balances there and some dynamics that move into the design. But we, as much as we can, early in the process, we flag some of these key sensitivities to try and mitigate any potential adverse effects.
Thank you. And my understanding is that not, you know, when we think of wind farms, we think of massive, great wind farms, but some of these are like little lifestyle blocks with a small number of turbines. So it's very difficult to generalise it as one size because they're not. So thank you for the reply. So any more questions on the report? Thank you, Nicole. The presentation was very good.
So, Mr. Chairman, I might just touch on one other thing. Just want to highlight while Lyndon is here. At the bottom of the report on page 36, I mentioned the Harbour Master function. I'm not sure if Lyndon's got anything else he wants to add, but probably just put a shout out for the work that Lyndon and his team have been doing, particularly over the summer months. Lots of good positives around education and cooperation with vessel owners and getting some good media coverage and good traction on that. It's a growing area, as the chairman has commented, in the Fiordland, with like our coastal marine area is massive. It's, I think, 30,500 square kilometres or something like that, and running around about 2,000 odd kilometres of coast when you go through all those fields around Fiordland all the way around to east of Slade Point. So it's a huge patch to cover. Lyndon and his team are doing his very best on that. I'm sure you want to add to that, Lyndon.
Thank you. Just Councillor Pemberton.
Yeah, just want to add to that. Look, get out in the ocean a bit myself, and obviously, had connected with the guys on the jetty and such like, and feedback from other boaties I've spoken to. They've been speaking very highly of how we're engaging in the model that we're taking on. So yeah, just want to commend the team how well they're representing Environment Southland, and the feedback's actually been really positive from hearing about how well Southland boaties are generally quite prepared. So it's positive.
That's great. Thank you. And let's hope it continues to improve. Thank you, Linda.
Just on this report itself, Mr. Chairman, it's a new report, as I said. If there's anything that councillors would like to see moving forward on content, then feel free to let me know.
I'll make the recommendation, Chair.
Thank you. Seconder. Thank you. All in favour? Against? Thank you, Nicole and Charlotte and Haley and everyone involved. Also you, Bruce. Thanks, you both here as well. So now we move on to 9.8, which is an update on councillor requests and actions.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, we had followed up on the ones from the previous meeting, which was some time ago, as I said there in August, with the fast track reporting and the MOU, which Lyndon has embedded now. Lyndon, I think, with Port Otago around and operating quite well. I think, I'm not sure if you want to comment on that, but that was, to refresh your memory, the MOU related to providing support, resilience and mutual support in the Harbour Master function. There have been some high-profile Harbour Master related events over this summer around the country. Most recently, probably the sinking in Banks Peninsula there that got quite a bit of coverage. And that's an example of where it's good to have that resilience in place. So I think it's pretty well sorted now. Is that in operation?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, the MOU is unfortunately still a work in progress, and despite encouraging the Otago Harbour Master to follow up, which he's doing, and I understand that it's stuck with the legal team. So that's kind of where it sits at the moment. We promise every now and then that we need to have this resolved so that we can have that certainty around regional support in times of need. And certainly there's a good example of that over Christmas where we had delegated functions and powers vested in Otago to be able to support us. Sorry, that was last year, not over there. So it's still a work in progress, unfortunately.
Would it be good to leave that in there as something that we can revisit?
Yes, absolutely.
Also, fast track inputs were actually a lot on this meeting.
A couple of action items from today we'll follow up on. I think they've already been followed up to some extent by Lucy and Catherine, so they'll probably beat me to it, Mr. Chairman, but we'll make sure that those queries from today get reported back to yourselves.
Okay. So any questions on that at all? No? Someone like to move? Councillor Gibson, move?
Yes, I'll move. Thank you.
Second, Councillor Pemberton. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Thank you. Now we move on to 10, extraordinary urgent business. There's none. No. And public excluded business, none as well.
Mr. Chairman, there's just one point I'd like to bring up. This morning, just before I left, I had a phone call from a concerned ratepayer and I haven't had a chance to look at this yet, but apparently on the Environment Southland website there's some markings around rivers and places that have just come up. I think they're called roading parcels. Could we find out from someone just what exactly what that is about, please?
Do you want to flag that here or flag it with regards to the ICM? Or?
Well, could I make a comment?
Yes, certainly.
Lucy has that full thing that was sent to me with all of those markings on it and the changes from Queen's Chain to, I think it's called a road something or other.
Roading parcel.
Roading pass, yeah. And so Lucy's got it and she's going to come back within 2 days. So can Jeffrey get his name on it too?
I'm not sure if it sort of falls within our scope, but Lucy, are you able to tee Councillor Young in with that information as well?
Yeah, absolutely, Chair, no problem. Following on from the conversation that I had with Councillor Gibson earlier, I've followed up with our GIS team and they're seeking some additional information. So once I've got that, I'll share it with the councillors, no problem.
Okay, thank you. I'm sure there's more councillors that want the information as well, so.
Yeah,
thank you very-
I'd send it round to everybody was my intention, Chair.
Thank you. So back to business. So close of meeting. Thank you everyone for attending, and thank you to all the staff. The information was extremely good. And we need to think about the next regulatory meeting moving forward. And I close the meeting. Thank you.
Whereabouts is that on the website, Jeffrey?
I don't know as yet, I haven't.
Hang on, I can